This podcast is brought to you by ESET, the global leaders in cybersecurity. ESET business solutions range from endpoint and mobile security to encryption, two-factor authentication, and advanced threat detection. And they've just introduced their new endpoint security management platform called ESET Protect. The ESET Protect business security bundles take security to a whole new level. For small businesses and MSPs, I recommend ESET Protect Advanced to cover all your security bases. ESET Protect Advanced includes endpoint protection, cloud sandboxing for advanced threat detection and prevention, full disk encryption, file server security, and cloud-based console. Right now, you can save 20% with this limited time offer. So you're not only getting best-in-class cloud-managed protection against advanced attacks, you're enjoying a significant discount. Not yet convinced? Don't worry. You can also get a free trial and an interactive demo at business.eset.com/radio. Get 20% off ESET's new business cybersecurity bundle, ESET Protect Advanced, at business.eset.com/radio.
A part of the Greenlit Podcast Network.
From a derelict spaceship in orbit generally above the Twin Cities, this is Evil Games Club. Do not attempt to adjust your device. We are controlling the transmission to tell Nice Games Club that they are wrong and dumb and that we know better.
I'm Dylan Skirbitz, and I'm up to no good.
I'm Adia Alderson, and I do what I want.
And I'm Dale LaCroix, and I hate everything. For this Evil episode, our topics are playing outside your genre, game difficulty, and cheating. And so, whether you're ready or not, here's how it really is.
Yay!
Woo! Great success.
Hello again! So nice to see you!
Been a while.
It has been a while. So, most importantly, how's everybody's hair?
Good.
It's rough. It's been real rough.
I feel like for me, I've been able to do, so I've been like experimenting with styles, and like the main one I've been going to is crochet braids, and I've gotten really good at it. And it's like the one brand that I've been using a lot is Boho Locks, not paid or promoted, but if you want to sponsor me, Boho Locks, I will take it.
Wow, right off the bat.
No, they're like really easy to put in. I've been able to do it myself. And so like, everyone's like, oh yeah, I haven't been able to go to my stylist and stuff like that. But like, I can do it myself now. And like, the last time I got it done, they charged $100 a pop to put it in. And now I can do it myself for free. So yeah, I'm doing pretty good with my hair.
Good.
My hair has finally reached the point where my bangs perfectly hit me in the eye every time I bend forward. So I've started using, where is it? I have a giant barrette, like the ones that they used use like a whole old woman bum that I just sort of strap to my head here.
Yeah.
It's truly effective, but it makes me look like some sort of alien.
I mean, from this angle with headphones on, you look just fine.
Yeah, that's the thing is it's very hard to tell because everything's sort of sleeked back right now.
Yeah.
Having Martha as the only other person in the house, like she has shorter hair than I do and pretty much always has. So it's not like we have any hair ties or barrettes lying around, like normal things you're supposed to have. It's just like nothing. Can't do it.
Normal lady
I've been using rubber bands for my ponytail.
Oh no, those snag your hair. You gotta get those nice satin ones.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have done that before, and I think it depends a lot on your hair texture, and so mine has been pretty good because mine's pretty, like, fine and sleek. But, like, the other trick I use when I worked in a lab is if you cut the, like a nitrile glove, if you cut the ridge off the edge of it, that makes a perfect one that almost never snaps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
well, I mean, thanks to the pandemic, nitrile gloves are a thing I have plenty of.
Yeah. So then that's my trick. Yeah. Also, if you get long enough, you can put chopsticks in your hair.
Yeah. Well, I'm on a moratorium. I told Martha I'm done with this. I'm cutting it. And she was like, no, don't. It's so nice. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's hideous. But I guess she's into the mountain man thing.
You got that going. I was going to mention your beard, which is long as it usually is.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. That's the thing is the beard, just like all the friction from winter coats and stuff, I feel like my beard never gets beyond this length. Like it erodes away practically at the bottom. So.
Yeah, it's like a couple inches below his neck.
Yeah, I'd say right now that's, maybe 3 inches total, maybe 3.5.
Yeah, well,
it's gotten more voluminous, certainly. So like, after I shower and I pull it out so it can dry, I can get it out, like 3 inches on either side of my head. Oh, yeah.
No idea.
it dries really different because my hair is very, very thick and like fairly oily. So however I leave it after the shower, it just holds that shape. So like, especially with the beard, you want to like spread it out, get some like good heft to it, because that's how it's going to look, for the next 2 days until I shower, like when I bring it down. So like today, yeah, I just wasn't paying attention and I got up super late this morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, it's compacted, but it'll get bigger.
Yeah. So I was
Do you
going to
use any,
say,
like beard products?
Not really. I use regular.
No.
I use hair conditioner. I use Tresemme or something like that. I bought a giant jug of it at Costco many years ago, and that's what I use.
Okay. Yeah, because I was like, all I wanted to tell you, Dylan, about your beard was you should start braiding it and see if that makes it grow longer.
It might. Like, having a little stronger consistency to it might help, but the problem is it's really not long enough. You can, 3 inches of beard gets down to it's a little tiny. It's a very sad braid. I don't want to be that Rasta guy with the soul patch that sticks out, That's just not me.
I had Mark cut my hair. It was interesting because he definitely pulled it all together and then felt like he was hacking in it. But it turned out fine as far as I know, because nobody else sees my hair. It looks fine. Anyway, so important meta for everybody else. We're still in the pandemic, and welcome to Evil Games Club. Okay, you ready for a epic level transition?
All right, hit me with it.
If I grew a beard, I would be playing outside my genre, which is our next topic.
Yes. Okay.
I appreciate it.
So this kind of came about during the pandemic. So if you've heard the other Evil Games Club episodes, you know that I mainly play story games. Think visual novels, Japanese RPGs, those types of games in that field. I rarely play kind of either shoot 'em ups or kind of Dark Soul-esque, those type of games. But a friend of mine mentioned Dandara, and first it had a black female protagonist, Brazilian, I think, to be specific, but I have to double check on that. And I was like, oh, this looks really cool, and the story felt fun. I was like, okay, I'm gonna explore outside my genre. I don't play these types of games. It was fun. And let me preface that before I say the words I'm going to say after that. The game was fun. But it was very difficult. I'm not used to that. I was playing the game, and after certain parts, I had been focusing so hard that my hands were sweating and shaking
I
as I was holding the controller.
I get that sweatiness, and then I have to wipe it off on my pants. And
right?
Yeah, because
then my heart was beating fast and everything like that, and I'm like, okay, I got to take a break. So I had to sit down and I don't know, watch Bob Ross for an hour before I could come back and play.
You're revealing your relaxation techniques,
right? Oh, his voice is so relaxing, and he's just little trees. But yeah, so I felt like I normally don't like when I play a video game, I don't want it to beat me in submission and ask me if I want more. I want to enjoy the experience. But I did have fun. I was going through and stuff like that, but it was not an experience I would do again. If someone's I have a game like Dandara, would you like to play that? I'm like, no, I've tried Dandara. I've experienced what I need to experience. No more.
I've had a taste. I'm good.
Yeah. But then a friend of mine who I met online, met a lot of new friends during this panoramic anyways.
It broadens your view.
Right? But anyways, she had gifted me Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. And I'm like, oh, not another one of these. All right, I'm going to be polite and put a couple hours on it so she doesn't just gift it to me and I never touch it. So I go ahead and play it. And to give you, I'm 92% complete, and now I'm not just working through the end game completionist before I beat the final boss. I delved into it hard. And for someone who loves story, I'm just going to say the story's trash. I'm skipping scenes. The voice acting's fine. That's not the problem. The actual story is I can literally sit there and guess what they're going to say because it's that predictable.
Yeah.
I know all the beats. I don't need to see what's going to happen. It's they made the game. They're like, oh shoot, we need a story. And then they just sprinkled some context around it. But it didn't have that same punishing feel. I felt like anytime I was somewhere, I'm like, okay, I could see how the developers or the creators of the game intended for this how to go, but I could just max level my shield right here and just bulldoze through with lightning. Like even though, or like if there's a part where I just keep dying, I'm like, okay, I can just get good and learn how to dodge everything. But they're using fire, so I'm just gonna max my fire resistance and blow through this. Like it, it lended itself to like really good gameplay where it was still hard. There's certain places of friendship, and I died a lot in this game, but I never felt angry. Like I never like had to go sit down. Bob Ross didn't show up at all during my playthrough of Bloodstained. And it felt really good. And like I've tried it, like Hollow Knight gave me that same like I can't do this. Like I quit Hollow Knight. Like I was like halfway through and I was like, I cannot do this. Like I am now like I am more anxious after I'm done playing Hollow Knight than going in. And I was like, it's just not for me. And so now I'm looking for like that. I'm outside my genre, but I don't know where to look. I'm like, I want something like Bloodstained. I want that Metroidvania still. I still want difficulty, but I don't want Dark Souls. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, it has been a ride.
Yeah, I also was recommended Bloodstained in pretty much the same way, where I was sort of complaining about the lack in my life of like sort of, for me it was Rogue Legacy, because when Rogue Legacy came out, that's where I really got into the Metroidvania style, because as like the way you point out, that's a game where if you don't have the get good mentality, you just power through it until you're so overwhelming that everything like just evaporates in front of you. Like, and that's very much my style. I also like, I'm here to get entertained. When I play a video game, like I don't want to be challenged. I can go and like do math if I want to be challenged and feel a sense of accomplishment. Like bulldozing is very much the way that I enjoy video games. And so for the same reason, I played through Bloodstained and I got to like the first ending, which I think is like 25% completion or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's one of those games, I don't want to spoil too much, but it's one of those games where it's like the Castlevania series in particular really invests heavily in like different storylines that are all garbage, but like different ways to play and different like secrets that you will find as you develop sort of your understanding of the game. And I got to the first boss and beat it, and then it said like the sad "you got the bad ending" spiel, and I was just like, okay, and moved on. Like I never went back. I was like, I got the bad ending. That was the end of the game. Like, I had no desire to play it because you sort of. Yes, contrary to Rogue Legacy, I found that like the thinking that goes into it to where I had to stop and say like, I should probably like really max my lightning because I'm going to be having to deal with this sort of person. Like that was the part that lost me. Like I just wanted to be running through rooms as fast as I could. And as soon as you introduce thinking to it, it's like, well, I might as well just go play, Final Fantasy IX or something where I've got to like actually use my brain.
I feel like that's one reason why I was attracted to Bloodstained. I play a ton of those JRPGs. Like I'm the one that like brings out the spreadsheet. I'm like, okay, I have this much resistance when I go here, and I'm going to max this up here so that it connects and has synergy with this and stuff like that. So, yeah, I can see the difference.
But in addition to that, I also picked up Hollow Knight this year for exactly the same reason, and I also found that to be punishingly difficult. That at least, I'll say that's in a whole different. That's more in like the Dark Souls style, like deliberate to make you feel bad kind of way. Like Castlevania is not easy, but like it's very old school, and it's like here's the way it's structured, and you are supposed to play it as a connoisseur of that type of game. It feels like, whereas Hollow Knight is like, yeah, you want some 2D Dark Souls because we'll hit you in the butt. So I got to that and like got through the first two bosses, pretty much experiencing the same thing as you were, like just like finishing drenched in sweat, not knowing, but like something about it was like that's the kind of game for me where like I feel like I'm going to come back to it at some point and like do like almost like a boss a month kind of thing, where it's like this month I'm going to spend 10 hours figuring out how to get like this much further in Hollow Knight, because there's something, I don't know, and I think for Hollow Knight the thing that does it for me is the atmosphere. Like I love the spooky bugs. I love like sort of the sad decaying thing. Like it's actually one of the reasons that I wish that I was good enough to play Dark Souls, because I like the idea of like buried lore and like cool sort of falling apart worlds. I just don't have the time for the difficulty in either of those circumstances.
Right, and I feel like that's the same thing. What I'm blanking on the name. It's a game similar to Dark Souls, but you're like in like the turn of the century and like.
Is this the one with guns? Bloodborne?
Yes, Bloodborne. That's it. Thank you. Bloodborne. Like I looked at it, like I like the lore, I like the feel, I want to play it, but I'm like I know what's going to happen when I start that game. It's just not going to end well. And that's been a controversy for a while, because I remember on Twitter, and I can't remember the game, but there was a controversy about a game coming out in that similar style of Dark Souls and Bloodborne and stuff like that. And they were originally going to come out with a difficulty thing. So you could set the difficulty in the beginning. So like people who still want some challenge, but trying to fulfill that like power play fantasy can still enjoy it and not have to go through. And then like, as Twitter does, uproar. No, we can't do that. It changes the integrity of the game and stuff like that. And so they ended up not doing it.
That's terrible because I love the easy setting.
Thank you. And it became to that sound. And I feel like we're now just segueing to the next topic.
Yeah, we just ignored this topic and went straight to game difficulty, but whatever. Yeah. We can circle back around.
We'll circle back around. But it's that thing of like almost as if your achievements are somehow diminished when there is a mode or something added that affects nothing of your gameplay. And that it was very hard for me to like sit and try to see that mindset. I'm like, okay, if the easy mode's there, you can just ignore it. You just play the game. You can like close your eyes and tell someone to pick the difficulty for you so you don't even have to see the word easy mode when you start the game. But like just the fact of it's there seemed to upset people. They're like, oh, we don't have to accommodate, or if you want to play this, it's like you said, it's that get good mentality that I think and I hope eventually will fade away from the gaming community.
Right? Well, it feels like a very... Sorry, go ahead, Dale.
Oh, I was going to say that it feel like I wonder what the reasoning... I mean, it's not reasoning, it's emotion, because most arguments are won emotionally. But what that is, if it's something where you want everybody to be as scared and tight-gripped and sweaty hand as you are, or is it a thing where because that pulls into the motion, you just don't realize that some people are really bad at it, and so they'll get that effect on easy versus like I had to learn how to play this game and play this type of game and get good at mashing the buttons and exactly the right and reacting. Everybody else should too.
Right. It feels very much like, to me, it reminds me of a lot of sort of, I don't want to get too political, but the political divisions in this world that focus on the difference of equality of starting place versus equality of outcome. Because the people who want these games to have their one way, like the one hard way that you have to beat it, like it seems to stem from this it's a measurement stick for them, because it's for people who don't think of people who start at different ability levels, different skill levels, all these things that would make a game like vastly more punishing to someone who is not like specifically in this mindset, where that's the sort of game they seek out, that they don't consider that there could be people who derive that sort of value from an easy mode, because there's this gatekeeping strain that has sort of crossed, like, I feel like it's very traditional video gaming to be snooty and stuck up about people who, are less good than you, because it came from this very competitive and capitalist predatory place. The arcade mindset is definitely still in place, where there are these people who think, well, I'm the best, so I should get to play the most and the longest. And it just doesn't seem to go away, even though we're a full generation past these people who were fighting over, who got to play Street Fighter 2 next, standing in line. We're just not in that world anymore, but that has persisted because there are those people who are like, well, people were mean to me because I wasn't good at sports, so I'm going to be mean to people who are less good at me in video games, which is just such a weird concept to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I feel like I get the understanding, like the feeling of accomplishment of playing something really difficult and putting in the hours and times and like whatever it is to see the content or whatever you get and XYZ. And knowing that like someone else didn't do that, but still saw a similar content and still beat it. So like if two people are like, let's say there's a dragon in there that's really hard named Zeus. I beat the dragon Zeus. And like two people, one may have done it on easy mode and one may have done it on a more harder difficulty. I feel like both are still valid, but I think the problem is they're like, oh no, you didn't really beat it because you didn't do it on like the actual higher difficulty. That's what the trophies are
for, because it will tell you what difficulty you're on.
Yeah, and I feel like right, and it's that mindset and mentality. I agree with you, Dylan, that like it seems to like keep crossing over into like more and more stuff. And then the weirdest one is when it comes into play in games that never even have that intended in the first place. And it's back to similar to genre and difficulty. Like when I was just playing more story-based games, it comes to that same mentality. Oh, those games aren't really hard, or they're not really difficult, or you only play the easy games and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, no, I enjoy it. And some of those decisions are really difficult. I romanced all 5 characters in my visual novel and got the good endings on every single one. That is an achievement for me. Anyways, but no, yeah, or like Stardew Valley and, Harvest Moon, and all these games that are like casual games and don't have that.
The Animal Crossing wars of people bragging about their different crossed flowers. I had to endure that for 5 months this summer.
Right, and that's a good example of a game that has the whole premise of like calming, everything is kind of easygoing. There's no lose state, and still that competitive nature comes in. Like, you're right, Animal Crossing, you wouldn't exactly put that genre with like high competitiveness, but it came about, and you're like, how? But yeah, and so when I started to play like these more Metroidvania games, I had people like, "Oh, you're starting to play those real games now." I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
Real games. I've always been playing real games and stuff like that. But yeah, it gives you more gamer cred when you are playing more difficult games. And I'm air quoting heavily as I'm talking about this.
Yeah, there's been so many air quotes throughout this whole conversation. As if the derision in our voices wasn't enough to tell.
Right?
But yeah, I think about that, and particularly when it comes to difficulty, there's so much there's so much room for the industry, I think, as a whole to grow in that way. Because I've been playing, especially this year, it feels like I know there are lots of games that have good accessibility settings, but it just, in the number of games that I've played that all have made a point of like rich and diverse accessibility settings as essentially that is the difficulty system. Like in Control, for example, which is, I think, an absolute standout. I think we may have already talked about this, but the fact that you can go into Control and set everything, you set enemy health, you set how much damage you can do, you can flick on various types of God mode, is just like so freeing to be like, yeah, everyone I knew played that game, and we all were like, yeah, do you remember this part when that guy jumped out and like really scared you? Like, there are all these great beats, and we all got this story that was like tense. It's a game that engenders tension in you. But everyone I know was able to finish it because everyone, like, they pinpointed that way they wanted to play it, and the game was like, yes, like, I want you to experience this. And it just feels so much like a world away from the kind of difficulty of things like Monster Hunter, which I've been playing a lot of, which I love that game. I don't know why, but it's just mean. Like, everything about it is like, you have to do everything right, and you have to like be very meticulous, and then sometimes it will still just kill you. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. And it's like, I understand how, like, I can get the thrill out of that, like in Monster Hunter, when you take down a big monster, like, yeah, you're air punching, you feel great, but like, did I really have to spend like the 10 hours like laying out my crafting menu so that I could awkwardly hit the buttons in the right succession? Like, couldn't you have just done that for me? Like, was that critical to the experience of feeling like I did something? No, it isn't.
Yeah, I would have given up on that game, I can tell you that. I like spreadsheets and like wikis, like I think they should not be necessary to play games.
I think it depends on the game. Like,
yeah,
for games that have extensive crafting systems, I enjoy having the wikis, and I'll look up stuff and things like that. And like, I'm okay. I was like, thank you. Like Stardew Valley, I look at the Stardew Valley wiki quite regularly, just because there's just so much, and there's a lot of vastness. Divinity Original Sin 2, their crafting system, and then the newer edition too, Original Sin. No, is that the newer one? Anyways, all of the Divinity games have a rich crafting system, and that also lends itself to a really good wiki. But the thing is, like, it plays well and like rewards you for doing so, and it's the exploration of kind of like figuring things out and like, oh, we can combine this, oh, it's really cool, and it plays well to the strategy. Where I feel like more like what you're talking and dealing, it's like they're almost like extenders to the game just to make it longer, that you have to do these things to get to the part that you really want to do. Like, it doesn't lend itself to the creativity that kind of comes with good crafting systems that lend itself to that point of like needing the wiki to like, this feels like arbitrary. It's like busy work at school.
Yes, exactly. Where it's just like, yeah, there's a crafting system, and instead of that encouraging me to go like, so if I put like snow herbs and fire herbs, do I get something? Like, there's none of that. There's a crafting system simply so it can tell me, go out and get 10 snow herbs now. Like, that's it. That's the crafting system, you know? Like, it's I guess I agree with you on the wikis a little bit. I am a total hypocrite because I remember when Minecraft came out on consoles, and I was all up in arms that Minecraft in consoles just tells you how to craft things. Like, what? I had to drop my bricks in a square, you know, like, this is unbelievable. You know, yeah, like, there's definitely there's room for those sorts of games, but it just, I particularly think like the Larian Studios one too. For Divinity Original Sin 2, I was really mad when I discovered out you could combine spell books, because there was never in the game you could miss that entirely. And I'm like, there's an entire set of spells that I've literally never used in that game, because I was like, oh wait, there's just a whole crafting system that's never mentioned. And that is like, I don't know, that's a little above and beyond for me.
Right. Yeah, there's a level of like, you need to introduce the mechanics and also introduce explore. Oh, speaking of which, for all of you who are going to play Bloodstained, because they don't mention it, they don't talk about it, they don't say it anywhere, it is not a spoiler, it is information you need to know, so you're not like me on the final hour realizing this and now leveling all these up. You will get these yellow shards. If you level them up to 9, you get them permanently. They never tell you that. They just assume you're going to level one up to level 9, and then magically you see, oh, it's a permanent skill now. No, I never did. I was like, okay, waste of resources. I'm going to use these for the other things. You know, it gives me marginal MP boost or attack boost. Why would I do that when I just want XYZ? No, it does that. I felt the same way where like, that was information I needed in the beginning, so I could plan myself accordingly as I played.
Welcome to Game Hints. It's our podcast within a podcast starring the host of Evil Games Club. I just want to drop in, since we're doing this, to mention really quick, in Monster Hunter, specifically in Monster Hunter Rise, the Switch version, they changed it from all the other Monster Hunter games now. If you capture a monster, you can capture it or you can kill it. And normally, if you capture it, that was like good. You know, in the other Monster Hunter games, if you capture it, ooh, good job, you get extra rewards. And they changed specifically that to now, capturing and carving have different resources that they drop, and it's never mentioned. So, like, if you are the setup for a person like me who is like, why would I kill a monster when I can be nice and capture it? You'll never get the Magnamalo Tail Plus, and you'll never finish your Sword and Shield. Meh.
Oh, that's brutal.
So, yeah. Dale, what's your tip? What game would you like to warn people about?
Put you on the spot.
I don't know, because I've been playing Spiritfarer fishing minigame. There are things where you're like fishing, you can't get any of these special fish until you level up, but you just think you're bad at fishing.
Good to know. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning into our show within a show. Now back to your regularly scheduled show,
where we complain about stuff.
Right. It's weird when like certain games, I feel like it was like an implementation that was supposed to happen, but they're like, you know what? And then they just forgot to come back and fix it, because Bloodstained does that too. So the entire time, and this is another good tip, they'll be like, you can't have too many shards. If you have too many shards, you know, it'll corrupt you. Doesn't matter a thing. If you go through selling your shards, you'll get to the end and realize it didn't even matter and you wasted time selling shards. There's no consequences for having 1,000,000 shards. There's no story changes for having 1,000,000 shards. Get as many shards as you want. No one will care. But they'll keep saying it like, oh man, you're sure you don't want to sell some? You have quite a bit there. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
All right,
maybe they were going to do something there, and then...
Yeah, they got to the point where they're like, I guess that's just a fun little red herring. Jesus.
Uh-huh.
Well, good. This is a good reminder to all the Nice Games Club people when they listen through this. Tutorialize.
I think they did that topic, right, about good tutorials a while ago. Yeah, it's important. Like there's many games where I've been so angry when I've been like, okay, I'm halfway through. I'm like, why can't I beat this? And someone's like, oh, you have to do this, this, this. And I was like, they never talked about that mechanic. They never said, oh, then you must have missed this one part where they briefly mentioned it within a rhyme and a story and a song and dance routine.
Well, that's like the famous thing in adventure games, right? Where they're like, yeah, you just had to combine the pomegranate with the screwdriver. That's very simple. Like, oh yeah, if I go through and try every single item in my inventory with every other one, eventually I'd stumble on that combination. But I don't think pomegranate plus screwdriver equals carburetor. That's just not how my brain works.
Right. And I feel like it's this weird thing of like, back to difficulty. They're like, they don't want to be like, oh, we don't want to hold their hand in the beginning in the tutorial, because people complain about like, oh, here's the tutorial level of land and I have to go through all these things. I know how to do it. But that's really helpful. I feel like it's a small price to pay to get to the game, and at least you know everything. And those places that like will just sprinkle in what they need to know when they need to know it. And that usually, I would say 50% of the time that works. And the other 50%, I'm just kind of like scratching my head. I'm like, I think I'm supposed to know what to do here, but I don't. And then there I go to the wiki because I have no idea what to do. I think that only happened once in Bloodstained for like actual progression, where I was like actually stuck and I'm like, where am I supposed to go? And I had to look it up, and then I like swore for a couple minutes because I was like, no one would have figured this out. This is literally just me just trial and error in this area until I just happenstance on this spot. But I figured it out and I moved on, and everything else was fine by then. But that was really annoying.
And this is why I love the Dishonored games, because you can play through the stealth, try really hard to not to kill people, and then when that stops working, you shrug your shoulders and become an angel of death, bearer of destruction. Like, it's great. It's a great game because it allows you to do whatever path you want up until that no longer works for you.
See, I wanted to play those games, actually. I haven't got around to it. I have a very long list. And you would think being home 24/7 would allow me to play all these games that are on my really long list. But no, I feel like the only game I've gone to actually finish, I played Color X Malice, which is a visual novel on the Switch. I finished that, and now I'm about to finish Bloodstained. The entire pandemic, 2 games.
Yeah, I feel like I got laid off in April, and I was like, yes, finally, like the freedom to just really dig into some games. And I proceeded to sit on my couch and watch, like NCIS and just garbage on the TV for literally 5 months. Like, I've gamed less since the pandemic started, just because, like, yeah, I just sit here and go, ugh, I don't have the energy.
Right. Like, I'm working from home now. And like, that's another thing where like after work, I'm like, okay, I closed my laptop and I'm like, oh, it's free time, me time now. But I'm just like, but I could just take a nap.
Yeah.
And like, I could do things, but I could watch the Great British Bake Off again. Like, I feel like, and that makes sense. I'm doing things that are low effort and low thought because, like, stress. There's a global stress right now. And like, the more things you can do to like lower that makes sense. And so like, games that raise stress or take a lot of thought and concentration and like mental energy. Gosh, I feel like that's why I've been even able to play Bloodstained, because like I'm now at a point where like, all right, I'm a little better, even though things are still rough. I'm not as in a rough patch as I was like last year. I think last year was rough for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm like, okay, my brain can focus now on things that are a little more difficult. Little, keyword, a little more difficult.
A little more difficult.
Yeah, so many games I think rely on that. We were talking about like the sweaty hand feeling. It's that like the quote good stress where it's like, games are a little bit stressful, but you still enjoy them because the idea is the reward at the end. But yeah, things like that, especially last year, there was just no room for that. Like, I needed like literal, like soft, sweet things that were nice and didn't challenge me at all. And it's exactly that, where like, I think somewhere along the way in the past couple months, like the switch flipped, where I went from being like just exhausted by the horror of everything all the time to like getting antsy again, where like I'm starting to get like, I don't know, I just want to do something. I want to do something, anything. And like that has sort of inspired me to take up things like Monster Hunter again, where it's like, oh yeah, I sometimes have to work at video games.
No, exactly. I agree 100% with that. Like, I feel like I feel like that was why Animal Crossing was so popular. Like, a horrible time, but like Animal Crossing could not have asked for a better time to release their game. It is a macabre way for something to profit the way it did. I mean, like it became like this big thing. Like, wasn't there a talk show host that's still doing talk show host, and it's called like Animal Crossing, like Talking with Animal Crossing, and he has like actual celebrities come on, and they just talk Animal Crossing character, and he like records on it, like he has this like house set up as like a recording studio and stuff like that.
Adorable,
right? No, it's adorable, and like those are the type of games that like I gravitated to. I played what was that? There's this really cute baking game called Lemon Cake, I think is what it's called, and it's surprisingly, you are running a bakery, so there's a little stress involved, but I feel like it's that just enough little good stress, and like the reward feedback is so quick. Like a gameplay of like a bakery day is like 10 minutes. And so you're like running around, baking these things, going back and forth. And then at the end of the day, there's a little bird that says, "You did a great job. Here are your rewards. You've done," and the developers would do an amazing job. Like there's some new modes coming out and there's a lot of stuff that's coming out. But I feel like that genre of like that relaxing, calming game is becoming a lot more like A Short Hike and the new bathhouse game that's coming out. I don't quite remember the game. And they're management. So there's like little stress of like having to manage things like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me cognitively, that's helpful because like it is something in my life I can manage and things go well. Like I can have that slight stress when I'm doing things.
And then some little bird comes in and says, "Good job."
Yes. Like I feel like I feel like that's what's really nice, that sweet spot for me, where there's like that tiny bit of stress. I'm managing things. In the back of my mind, I'm like, I got this. This will work out. I can handle this. And at the end of the day, like I have handled and managed things and organized things, even though in my life I may not be managing, handling, and organizing things.
Uh-huh.
Retrograde Amnesia is a comprehensive podcast about classic Japanese RPGs. Each season, we cover a single game, chapter by chapter, beat by beat.
Season 1 covers Xenogears. Season 2 covers Chrono Cross.
Each episode, we play a section of the game and unpack the story, mechanics, music, and themes.
Also, our post-production AI companion, the FakeNet, fills us in on the finer details we may have missed.
Initializing FakeNet.
Yes. They need me for everything. Find Retrograde Amnesia at greenlitpodcasts.com.
Hey everybody, this is Andrew from Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and we are proud to be the latest addition to the Greenlit Podcast Network.
If you're a superhero fan, our show will put your knowledge to the test. Did you know Tim Burton almost made a Batman musical?
Or how Superman almost had a love story with his own cousin?
That's disgusting.
But it's true.
We cover it all, mixing clips with commentaries, sketches, and impersonations.
So tune in to Superhero Stuff You Should Know, available on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
I feel like that also, like when we're talking about difficulty and stuff like that, I think that's why that lends itself to cheating.
Ah.
Yes, because when you're in those like high difficulty, high like stress situations in those games that you have like that good mentality, knowing that there's something you can do to alleviate that and then get that feeling and that sense, because it is the personal reward, the going back and forth that kind of creates that. But it has its downsides and consequences. Like, for example, when Dylan was talking about that mentality of like, well, I did this and I'm so good at this and I'm amazing. I feel like that's why you got aim bots in games. Like for me, it sounds like it would take the fun. Like if you're playing a first person shooter and you're just sitting there as your computer does perfect shots everywhere to get high scores.
Oh yeah, that's boring.
I mean, yeah, it seems boring, but if your goal is to be able to boast with the best of them of like, look at my KD spread and stuff like that, then that would lend itself on why you would feel or necessitate that you have to cheat. And so I feel like, and it's similar. It's in like MMORPGs where you have people who feel the need to do like farming bots and stuff like that. And it's not even for gameplay's sake, because like you said, it's boring. Yeah. I don't see the enjoyment of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But you get to go on your forums and online and I farmed 99 of these. I've killed the gajillion of these and all that stuff like that. And I don't know. It is a difficult topic for me.
Yeah, so I was wondering if like the motivation was bragging rights, or if the motivation for that was, you know, like actually making the bot and being like, look at this cool way I figured out of doing something better.
No, I don't think so.
Because most people
I think that the motivation for those people when it comes to anything where you're like aimbots, anything online, is like you're just there to make other people's day worse. That's why those people do that. Mm-hmm. In single player games, so I'll say this. I guess we should define cheating right off the bat. Because there's no such thing as cheating in a single player game. There is amending the game to work for what you want it to do.
Oh, that's an opinion.
Please, I'd love to hear your opinions. But yeah, that's where I stand, is like, as soon as I have bought the game, I can do whatever I want to it in order to maximize my enjoyment from it. Like mods, cheats, whatever.
That does not seem wrong. I just like, maybe... I don't know why this is, but you know how I'm like, hey, you know, like you shouldn't have to like write down anything in order to beat the game. And that's why I'm always like leveling up, you know, 5 levels above what I need, the recommended to be able to defeat the thing. I also feel that way in, in regular like puzzle solving games. Like I remember in Myst, I did not look up anything and it took me forever to solve that game. And I would just go back and forth to see if I noticed anything different. And it took forever. And so it really sucked my time, but I was a kid, so I had time to suck. But so I've always considered that looking something up outside the game to be the first level of cheating. And
wow, so you have an extremely strict definition then.
Yeah.
The cheating, including walkthroughs, is brutal.
But that's the only way I could beat things. I just I try to do it by myself because I also have a very high tolerance for repeating the same thing or getting close because I don't know, that's just part of it. And maybe it's because my aversion to cheating. Yeah, and then I got more into it later because I was if I haven't beat it after this many things, I need to watch somebody play it. So because I'm clearly not recognizing the strategy against a boss or whatever it is, and I can't wait, and I still want it.
I mean, I feel okay, so I guess for a total opposite reference, I remember as a child buying those giant walkthroughs and starting the game and here we go, make sure I get all the quests and items and everything.
Might as well just put in the game. Turn to page 3.
Right?
Yeah, and I mean I've done that too because when I played Little Big Planet, I wanted all the stuff, and the only way to get all the stuff was to do the walkthrough. But then I would have to actually execute.
I guess it depends on the genre because there's levels of cheating, cheating quotes, depending on the game that I'm playing. So I think why I was really into those walkthroughs because a lot of times in Japanese RPGs when I was younger, you could miss things and no longer be able to get that. And so you'd be playing along and you forgot to talk to so-and-so and give them the red diamond. And they're like, yep, that quest is now forever locked to you. And so my anxiety was that can't happen. And so I would buy the walkthroughs and stuff to play for those games. But then for games that didn't have couldn't miss anything and were pretty good at giving you in-game ways of figuring things out, like Bloodstained, say for that one time, I didn't feel the need. I didn't look up anything. I think the most I did was when I needed to farm an item and I couldn't remember which monster dropped it. I'm okay, let me just look it up and figure it out. But I was able to just kind of figure everything out because I'm there's nothing I can miss. I can't miss anything. And so usually for games, nowadays games don't do that as much. They're not as bad as that. And so if I know a game won't do that, I'll play it through first as the Adia playthrough and then play it again with my guys and walk there and completion time.
Yeah. But as you point out, a lot of that can be ameliorated, the seeking things out on that level, not necessarily cheating, but needing a guide to sort of figure out how to play the game right is really something that can be essentially designed out. That's one of those things where when you get a good game like Bloodstained, or I think about that with Hades all the time. Hades has all of these different power combos and all these different ways you can play it. And I never thought to myself ooh, I should look up how to do this because there was so much joy to be had just from going what did I get here? Because you never got to that point where you're I chose an Ares boon and a Hermes boon, and therefore I just can't do anything. There was always some feeling of whatever I've got, I can make it work into something. And it sort of alleviates that need because especially in that game, you're just going to see something different the next time. So you might as well see how far you can get with this because the next time is going to be delivering you this new exciting thing again every time.
Yeah. It's interesting though because of the different perspectives of cheating because we're all circling back to that get good. The whole concept of cheating in the first place is another topic that comes up. I completed the entire game without looking anything up. I'm cool, boo. I needed to look up some stuff. And I still enjoyed it, had a great experience. But that's an achievement for people. They like to say, I completed this game and I didn't look anything up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say I go even further. So for Dishonored, for example, I downloaded a cheat engine so that I could directly manipulate how that game works. All of the gates on when you can use your powers, there's a mana bar and stuff. No, get that shit out of here. I want to have fun jumping around, blowing people up. I think anything like that, however you play the game is right. Thinking especially like as a developer, I would rather someone break my game or twist my game or just look up a walkthrough and do it like, man, I just want your butt in the chair enjoying the thing I made, and whatever gets you there is like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I definitely put that in the bucket of cheating, but I also think that that's okay.
But that's the thing, is like, to me, that's not cheating, because if that were Control, that would have been an option. Why was that not an option to begin with? Every game should be like Control. That should always be an option. I should always be able to say, this game doesn't work this way. I need to change it. Like, and I think this is partly growing up with like Bethesda games, like playing Skyrim on a PC is a very different experience from playing on console. Playing on console is like, it's this sort of weird, slow game that's good with story, but like has a lot of these weird things where like to maintain immersion, you've got to like put your stuff down and stuff like that. And it's like, no, my version of Skyrim was I turned it on and I was Master Chief, as I've said before. And that's the way to play those games, because the Bethesda games will just break and you have to go into the console to fix them anyway. Just give the players that option in everything. I want the console. I want to be able to spawn myself health. I want to make the enemies disappear. I want to add enemies. Like, why is that just not the standard? Like, let people enjoy it the way they want. Like, maybe for obviously visual novels, that might be a little different. There, you might not be able to change the endings of the stories. But again, like, who's to stop you from doing that if you want to,
I feel like that's why for a lot of PC games, they encourage a mod community, because it saves developers some work. They're like, we'll give you the tools, have at it. Create what your heart desires. And the community usually does a good job. Like Divinity Original Sin 2 also has a built-in system where you can like create your own storylines and things, and you're like, oh, I wish it was like this. But speaking of visual novels and cheating, since you brought it up, I guess, what are people's thoughts about save scumming? And I guess for those to give a bit of definition, so a lot of visual novels are actually just story-based games. There's like these decision points, and you have to make a decision, and like sometimes it'll lead to a bad outcome, like a character will die, something will happen, you'll lose, whatever. There's people who will save before every like large event, and if the event doesn't go the way they want, they will then reload the previous save and then choose the other one, because like, okay, that's the path I actually wanted. And
boy,
so,
I feel like I'm being personally attacked here.
I think that doesn't fall into cheating at all.
Whoa, that's an interesting division. I want to hear the explanation for why walkthroughs are cheating, but save scumming is not.
Yeah, interesting, huh? Because you're always allowed to save. And like, as a player, you want to see all the endings. Do you not? Did you not read your choose your own adventure things and then jump around and then go back? I did.
Well, I bring that up because in the kind of visual novel, like interactive fiction space, there's a big debate about that. And that's why a lot of games will have an auto-save feature and they won't let you create saves. Mm-hmm. And so then you play, and once you make a decision, you're stuck with it. I don't like that. Me personally, I'm like, if you want to save scum in the interactive fiction that I made, go for it. If you want to see your perfect ending, do it. Because here's what I think. If a choice is so bad that a person doesn't want to play through it, then why was it there in the first place? Like, I feel like you can do moral and like, I would even say moral. You can do difficult decisions with outcomes that are like, or whatever, without like totally hurting the character. Like, I think you can do that well. And like, if you're at a point where people are saving and just choosing a path, then you might have created a linear storyline because everyone is choosing that one true path. And they've done research of this. Like, when you have those like really stark changes, people don't like being bad guys. People don't like seeing other characters die. And like, I feel so bad because there's the work and the art and the voice acting for these like not good paths, and it mostly goes unseen.
Right. Wasn't that it was BioWare who was talking about that, I think, especially with Mass Effect, how they said, we wrote an entire Renegade storyline, 5% of players even go down at once. Like, nobody wants to do that. So like, at some point it becomes, hey, if you're like going for one of these really awful sort of things that you really like, I really need to show the players some crappy stuff. It's like, maybe just don't. The players are going to actively try and avoid that anyway. Like, designing your game to do that is such a fine line to walk, because sometimes, okay, I will say there are some games where that works really well. Like, obviously something like Doki Doki Literature Club, the fact that you don't get to save it's kind of part of the horror. Like, it really is about like gating how you access it. But that is such a fine line between like, hey, this is scary and fun, and hey, this is incredibly annoying and it's like torture porn, where I'm just like, I'm tired of watching this.
Yeah, because I feel the reason why it works for Doki Doki Literature Club is that you go into the game knowing there is no good endings. It's just gonna be a tragedy all the way down.
Exactly. You have to have those expectations so set for that to work cleanly.
And so I'm playing through, I'm like, oh, well, this was a terrible ending. Let me go see the other 6 terrible endings. And I feel like that's the way to do it. Like, I feel if the Renegade shouldn't have been, you're a terrible person. I think Renegade should have been like, the a-hole with a heart of gold. That should have been the Renegade path. Like, people like those types of characters where, like, they toe that line of morality. It should have been an anti-hero instead of, like, I still think they towed too close to almost villainry. I'm like, this doesn't feel like I'm doing good. Because sometimes I would pick the Renegade options. I would be like, okay, small spoiler. There's a part where you're walking in and there's this kid that's going to sign up for, like, just assume it's something akin to the military. And you can see he's not ready. He's like fumbling with his gun and like he looks young. And so I think in the Paragon option, you just kind of like walk in and be like, maybe you shouldn't do it. But I think in the Renegade option, you like slap the gun and you're like, listen, kid, you don't want to do this. Get the hell out of here and go. And I felt so good because I'm like, yeah, I'm telling him, don't do this. And it's that like anti-hero with a heart of gold type of mentality. The action was a little rough, but you're essentially like, hey, kid, this isn't for you. Go.
But yeah. At the end of it, you're not like, wow, Shepard was a bad person. You're like, okay, that was a weird choice, but like he got his point across because that's the sort of person he is, maybe,
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking, I should say I'm thinking all male Shepard because that's how I did mine. But in my brain, it's a male Shepard, and I apologize. I realize different people's Shepards are different things. But yeah,
right?
Like it's. Are you guys familiar with like the traditional Dungeons and Dragons 9 alignment scale, where like there's sort of the y-axis is good to evil, and then the z-axis is like law to chaos, sort of how you approach it. And so like it seems like a lot of games, like specifically Mass Effect, but also what's the one? It was the PS3 launch title with the zappy powers. Oh, why can't I remember the name of that game? It had 2 sequels. Anyway, so there was a PS2 game or PS3 game that was really popular. That was a superhero game that was sort of the same thing, where you had these lightning powers and you essentially sort of molded this city as like either the superhero or supervillain in charge of it. But again, it engenders that same sort of disgust in a lot of players of not wanting to be just a full supervillain. And I would much rather see like a choices that reflect a person on that law or chaos scale, whether you are someone who gets along with authority and like easily follows instructions, or whether you are sort of the, do it your own way, don't take anyone else's help sort of thing. But both of those can like get to a goal without like eating literal piles of puppies or something, like the way it does in Fable, like giant red horns coming out of your head and burning eyes. Like, yeah, it's just, there's not much room there for good stories because the character has become so flat just to make it like, oh, your choices mattered.
So where would I fall on that scale given my attitudes towards cheating?
I think you're very firmly a neutral character.
Okay.
Because like there's again, neutral is always the middle option. Like law and chaos are typically for people, I feel like, who are, chaos is for people who like, I'm sure you've met people who are like, yeah, I want to wake up and do a different thing every day, like those kind of people.
Yep.
And the law people are the people who are like, I was a banker at 13. Like, so most people don't really like end up in both of those, in either of those like extreme ones. You're definitely, yeah. Your position on cheating though, I don't know, man. I don't know.
It is very interesting.
It's probably because I grew up in an age not before the internet, but before the internet was big.
And you're jealous that you're jealous now that these young kids are running around and beating mist in 15 hours or less.
Spend lots and lots of time on every single game.
But I mean, that is a good question. We're talking about cheating before the age of the internet. Like I said, but then again, I guess I was the one who bought the walkthrough guides. I feel so bad. That was such a great industry. I do actually miss that
yeah.
of like buying the game and like getting that beautiful walkthrough companion
They
with
were
the gorgeous
so
illustrations.
pretty.
Because it wasn't just like, here's how to do it. They gave like backstory on how the game was developed and the art and some of the lore and stuff like that. And like, it's just that industry is gone now with wikis.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember there was, I think it was the Primo. We got a strategy guide for Pokemon as little kids, and like the amount of like, yeah, someone put the time to write all these jokes and like point things out from the anime that aren't in the games. Like, it's just, yeah, these people put a lot of work into that stuff, and it's really enjoyable. You know, some of the funniest games writing I can remember reading as a child is, you know, how you like when they're like game facts used to do this a lot, where they just have the text ones, like where just it's wall of text, and all the like ASCII art people would do for that, like completely unpaid, you know, people just being like, I just want to tell people how to play this game. Like a lot of really cool stuff went into that.
Yeah, well, I was going to say those game guides were so popular, some people bought them and didn't even own the games.
They were really popular, but I feel like even when I'm trying to think of like the games I started playing where I first started understanding, oh, I'm playing this computer game, I can cheat in a way more conventional than just how to play it. I think it was The Sims. And I did my little, I don't remember what the key code was, a Control-Alt-C, and I'm like, bladder up. And I was like, Rosebud.
Yeah, Rosebud, like, exclamation point, colon, to like, repeat it a bunch of times to get the money. Yeah. Oh, I remember doing that.
Yeah, definitely like cheating in my book.
Right. And I feel like because at such an early age, I got used to the mentality of like, I can play this game, but if I need to augment it, I will. And I actually play now in a similar style. So like, there are certain saves where I'm like, I won't use any cheat codes save for like quality of life ones where like it just makes the game better, but I won't like do the money. And I do like the experience of like actually playing with the game's mechanics to go through. But then I have my Power Fantasy. I would even say Power Fantasy. I have my Perfect World games where I go in, I'm like, I'm a billionaire and like my parents, you know, work at XYZ and I own a clubhouse in the islands. And like, yeah, it's just, I feel agreed to Dylan. I feel like cheating in a single player experience, because multiplayer cheating is an entirely different issue. In a single player experience, I agree. I think I'm more closer to him, where I feel like it's just augmenting your experience to enhance your gameplay at that point. Because like the only person who benefits is you. It's not like someone else is going to be like, well,
talking
you put
about
in
the
XYZ.
First ones, the first ones that you brought to my mind vividly. So I wasn't allowed to have video games as a kid, so I had to sort of like pick them up at other people's houses. And I remember vividly the first time I ever played StarCraft, and I was playing it at a friend's house, and it was like 9 p.m. He was going to bed, his parents were going to bed, and I thought to myself, and I think I've told this story to you before, but I thought to myself, I can't not see the end of this game. So I looked up all the cheats and I played all night. And like, that was the only way, you know, if I had played it without cheats, I would have gotten through 2 missions and I would have gotten stuck and I would have had to think about it and practice unit building because it was a very micromanaging game.
I just assumed you were an excellent player.
Story. No, I cheated 100% all the way through it. I cheated through the whole thing so I could see the ending and go like, that's awesome.
So how did you know the cheat codes? That's what always like threw me off, because now there's the internet. Was there the internet back then too?
I don't remember how I got the cheat codes. For us, you know, growing up with kids who played a lot of video games, often there were, you know, word of mouth stuff. Like in Age of Empires, we learned all the Age of Empires how to spawn the Corvettes with the machine guns and stuff. Like that's all word of mouth. Like it's just your friend was like, "Hey, let me show you this cool thing."
But
and like you remember as a kid, you hold on to those nuggets of information like gems, man. You're like, there is no cow level. There is no cow level. I have to remember this code. It's the key.
Yeah, and like I asked Mark where they came from originally. He was like, well, magazines, Nintendo Power had a lot of them. And I was like, that's probably why I think it's cheating. If you have to like be able to afford the magazine to have the place through, it feels like cheating. That's probably where
one of your friends.
That's all. It only takes.
Yeah, but it only takes one, and then they like, here's the list, guys, and that's what one person would buy it. And I remember being in like elementary school, and they're like, "Hey guys, I got the latest digital pattern," and then like everyone just gathers around them, like, "Okay, turn the page."
But a lot of this stuff about the like, you know, talking about finding these things pre-internet, most of these games that we talk about, I don't know exactly how old you guys are, but you're about the same age I am, and there's really no pre-internet. There's only pre-widespread internet. So the internet was just the same as the magazines. It was like, did you know someone who had the money and time to be running a Usenet group or something like that? Because, IRC and Usenet were already huge, but, when I was born, certainly my dad met my mom on the internet. So, like, they kind of, that stuff was there if you had that stuff. It was just like, it wasn't where it is now, where you can say, yes, every house has a machine that will tell you video game cheats.
Yeah. No, I'm about 10 years older than you.
Okay, so you maybe at the youngest point, but you weren't playing video games, I assume, when you were 3. And I know by 1985, there were certainly, multi-user dungeons and stuff like that had already been going.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
Oh my god.
Oh, I did that as a little kid, man, when I was, really little. I remember my dad booting up a terminal so I could go and wander around and type with the dudes.
Yeah.
That and IRC.
I wasn't into that. Yeah, and it was a lot harder to get on the internet.
But yeah, I can understand how it's frustrating if there are cheats out there that you just don't get access to because you don't have a way to find the knowledge.
Okay, how do you guys feel about old things like the Game Genie?
I didn't have one, and I don't even think I was the right age for one at the time, but I know what it is.
I remember being super jealous. Yep. That was my Pokemon obsession was long because I fell in love with Pokemon when I was 7 and I got my first video game console when I was 16. So there was a good 9 years there of being like, wow, that's cool. I love your Pokemon. Can I touch it, please? But it's the same thing. I mean, it's just like that cheat engine I downloaded for Discord or not Discord, Dishonored. I wish there's a cheat engine for Discord.
I would put that in the section of cheating, but at the same time, I don't care if anybody cheats. If you have a Game Genie, that's fine, but I would call it cheating. Until you get to that multiplayer thing.
Yeah. But I feel like that's divide. I think that in the single player realm, there's the people who are like, yeah, that's cheating, but hey, that's how you play the game, do you? And there are people like, that's cheating. Did you really experience the game like it was supposed to?
Did you experience it? What?
I should start doing that to people. You're cheating. You're messing up the integrity of the game.
Right. And I think at the end of the day, that's the biggest divide. Not whether it is or is not cheating, it's how people see it. Because I know, my sister, for example.
Morality of it is the difference, not the definition of what falls into the cheating bucket.
Right. I think we would occasionally look stuff up, but I know she was playing Spirit Tracks and she was so proud because I think that was the first game she completed from beginning to end. Cute when she was younger and she would get stuck on spots, she'd come over to me and be like, here you go.
Yeah Also,
and then once I beat the pot
in the bucket of cheating, but I totally did it because that's
right?
okay.
And when I got her over that, she'd be like, okay, I'm ready to do the rest now, thank you, bye.
Martha's gonna be mad if she listens to this, but so this is what has been happening with Martha's been playing Narita Boy on Switch, which is a sort of retro 2D platformer, hack and slash fighter thing. And it's got some pretty floaty controls. It's a good game, but it's a little bit floaty on the controls. So Martha was stuck on at one point where there's just this section she couldn't get through because it required some tight jumping and then a big fight. And I was sitting there watching her, and then finally she's like, "All right, I'm done." And I was like, "Can I just I can do that for you." And she's like, all right, can you just get me past this real quick? And I was like, sure, no problem. So I picked it up, I went choop choop, I did it in 3 tries or something. Not I'm not saying, oh, I'm amazing, but for me, it was the kind of thing where this is the kind of game I play a lot of. Okay, I just learn how high the jump is, learn at what point you can dash, blah blah blah. So I was like, oh, this is kind of fun, getting into it. And she's like, no, give it back. This is my experience. You got past your thing. Now it's mine again.
Yep, I think that would be my angle, and I'd be like, okay, thank you for doing that. That was too hard. This is my game. Get your own safe game. But yeah, because I always had trouble with dash things because I would just forget they were there. Because you don't need it. You don't need to run.
No, I feel like that's why I like Dandara so much is that there was no actual jumping. So the really cool thing about Dandara is that when you're going in through, you stick. And so you use your, you have this guiding arrow and you point to where you go and you teleport to it. So you don't ever need to land anywhere. You're literally hopping around, hopping on platforms and stuff like that. There are a couple places where platforms are floating and stuff like that. But like, it always felt nice that wherever I guided my arrow to, that is where I was going to go. Even if that was the wrong direction, I knew, okay, I pointed it in the wrong direction. I can fix that. Where I feel like a lot of platforms is just like a jump. You kind of got to feel where the right angle is and everything like that.
And then like hit the button exactly the right time to jump at the right time so that you land because it's there. Because, I will sit there and because I'm so bad at that and try to do something forever because it's either just out of reach and it's supposed to be impossible, but I don't recognize it because that feels the same as things that are just really hard. And Mark will come in and be like, why are you doing that? You can't get up there. And I'll be like, but it really feels like I might be able to. If I did this better, I might be able to.
I remember exactly that point in Hollow Knight too, because Hollow Knight does the whole Metroidvania thing where they love to show you like, here's a thing you might be able to get to, and then of course you can't because you need a double jump or a second dash or something like that. But like you have to figure that out pretty quickly early on because you get to like 2 or 3 points where you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is the way to go, but I can't get to the thing. So like, am I bad? Or is this not the way to go? And you have to do it a couple times where you go like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm not that bad at this. I think this is the wrong way.
Oh, see, I just assumed I was that bad at it.
And so, I could see how that would be frustrating. Because, like, for Martha, that the part that stuck her on that level of Narita Boy over and over again was 2 times in a row, she had to jump, but not to max height, and then dash. And, like, for someone who doesn't spend a lot of time going, measure out how high the jump goes, whole total time to get to the top, wait till like you get halfway. Like, that's insane. If you're just like, I press jump and I jump, why is there more to it than that?
Mm-hmm. That's where I'm
at very similar. That's why I probably don't play a lot of platformers, and while Metroidvania is just forgiving enough where I'm like, okay, all right, I don't have to do too much here, but like once you start being like, okay, jump, half jump, dash, half jump, super jump, I'm like, nope, I'm done. 2D jumps, 2D math. I don't need to fraction out my jumps.
Well, let me tell you about a little game called Monster Hunter, where there's a jump and an alternate jump, and your back jump, and your forward dash, and your Z jump, and your Z alt jump.
What?
That's a game where like I'll sometimes be inputting like the buttons and the monster will just leave, and I'm like, well, still got to finish this combo.
Oh no.
I don't understand how that game is fun. It's just torturous.
You're playing it,
but yet it keeps you coming back.
Yeah, I can't stop playing it. But it's like trying to kill a fly with a spoon, where like you have a thing that can hit flies, but only if you nail it exactly on the edge, and most of the time it will just like gently cup and push it away. Like that's what you're dealing with.
Oh man, Monster Hunter. That's not single player, right? It has.
It's both. It's multi and single, but it's all PvE. So like you're never competing with other people. You're just playing alongside them. But so it's all very monster focused, and like that's the other. I don't remember where I wanted to talk about this, but I was just mad about Monster. I'm mad about Monster Hunter all the time now. It's in my dreams. But that's another thing about that game. Thinking about how things are explained to you, where like I feel like Monster Hunter would be the kind of game I would be tempted to cheat on. Except that it's so opaque that it's hard to tell what I would want, because it's one of those games where like the monsters don't have health bars, and there's no like it's not a very like the animation isn't super detailed, so it's not like there's a lot of visual indication like that they're all scarred up. They might limp at the very end, but like these are fights where like I'm just pressing the hit button for 20 minutes at a time, just full on jumping and fighting, and like you just never know when it's going to end because the monster doesn't react. You're like you're hitting this immovable object, and so I asked myself like, do I want the monsters to have lower health, or like do I want myself to have better weapons? Like it's hard to figure out what I even need because I don't have that visual indication of like like my sword says 11 damage, and I don't go, okay, is that 11 out of 1,000 or 11 out of 50,000? Like where are we at on this? And that like it confuses me enough to where it's like, well, I'll just sort of hack at it until it dies.
Oh, I need that feedback. Like, I feel like that's something that's like indicative of like fighting. I'm so used to it that I can pick it out. Like, I'll use Bloodstained all this entire podcast. I was playing Bloodstained, and like, you get those visual cues. Okay, I'm fighting, and they're using the same moves. Oh, they switched up their moves. I'm probably at the halfway point. Okay, all right, they're starting to pull out those heavy ones, and I can see that there's a lot of like upper dash. They're trying to kill me quick. They probably don't have a lot of health left. And I'm usually right. Like those are like it's been so ingrained to me from like games over time that happens. Zelda bosses do it. All kinds of bosses where like there's a certain beginning mechanic, and once they start switching up their techniques, you're halfway. And then once they start doing their more desperate attacks, you're near the end. Go hard.
Yeah, and the phases make it so much easier to do that. And Monster Hunter, again, the one indication is it will go and sleep somewhere when it's finally ready to be weak. And other than that, that's your only it's a binary. It's is it 100% fine and going to kill you, or is it basically dead and the hunt is over? And you get nothing in between. So especially because the cycling, so a lot of them, they have these sort of power up cycles, or first they'll do this thing and charge up their arm, and then they'll swing around with that arm. And then sometimes you'll arrive at the very beginning and they'll just have both arms charged and be like, hey, guess what? I skipped right to the end. Now we're going to do all the whirlwind attacks. It's so frustrating because you find yourself going gee, I've killed this monster 7 times. I'm not sure I could do it in 8th because at any given time it could just flip that switch and now you don't get to do anything. And and they love to layer all the So again, the whole thing is you go and fight these monsters and it's fight this monster, you don't know anything about it. So it will mention hey, this guy might use electric attacks, and that's literally it. In a game with 6 different kinds of blight alone, it has knockdown effects, it has lightning effects, it has water effects, it has slow effects, it has fire effects, it has sleep effects, it has poison effects. It has a different paralysis thing that isn't being stunned. And the fact that they're just well, take some healing potions, have fun. So you're basically supposed to go in, get your yeah, I'm trying to find a way to say this because I've only sworn twice this episode, so I'm doing really good. But yeah, they just you just are expected to get completely destroyed and then go, that was my mistake. Let me go and again, time to collect my 10 snowflowers. And I can't wait. I'm literally turning it on as soon as this podcast is over.
Oh my goodness.
But this is so this game has started to make me feel like I can touch the brain of the Dark Souls player and be I see it now. I feel your pain. I can understand. It's almost enough to make me think maybe it's time I sit down and get out a walkthrough and methodically play through Dark Souls.
Okay. Does somebody else want to do the outro or do you want me to?
Got it. I got it. I'm ready. I can do this.
Right. Okay. One take a deal. Right. Let's go.
That's our show. This is normally the part where one of your nice hosts tell you to subscribe to Nice Games Club. So go ahead and do that, but only so you can catch it the next time when we take over the show. The Nice Games Club is always looking for feedback. So tell them that Evil Games Club is the best. You can do that on Twitter at Nice Games Club. But whatever you do, don't fill out their feedback form. nicegames.club/feedback. Don't do it. Not ever. Episode notes are at nicegames.club. So until the next time we take over the clubhouse, remember to
be mean
and make trouble.
Yay!
Yeah, we only had one little mishap through that. It's pretty good recording overall.
Yeah.
Okay. So
there's so much to edit. I feel so bad for them.
Yeah, there was a
We're done. It's okay.
What? Oh,
sorry. I was talking to Martha. See, this is what I do all the time because Martha walked in and she was like, "Oh," and I was like, "No, it's fine."
Yeah. Okay. Apologies for the garage. I texted both my cousins in the garage. Opened the garage.
I couldn't hear it.
Mark would be like, "What is that noise?"
Yeah, whatever. It was one clip for 10 seconds. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice.
What is that noise? Huh.